Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. We're going to hear more evidence today from various people who were involved in complaints and relationships with the TMO and the Council. And I think, Mr. Rawat, our first witness is Ms. Kasote, is that right?
That's right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the panel. Our first witness, who I'd like to call, is Betty Kasote.
Good. Thank you very much. Good morning, Ms. Kasote. I understand you'd like to take the oath, and I think the words should be on the screen in front of you. Have you got the testament there? Someone given you a copy of the... That's it. Take that in your right hand and then read the words on the screen, if you would, please.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Now, do sit down and make yourself comfortable. And help yourself to water if you want it at any point.
Thank you.
Good. Yes, Mr. Rawat, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Ms. Kasote.
Good morning.
Can I start by thanking you for coming to give evidence to the inquiry today?
Thank you.
Your willingness to continue to assist with our investigation is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
My questions are intended to be short and simple, but if you have any difficulty understanding a question or you'd like me to repeat it or rephrase it, then please do just ask me. Also, could I just ask you to remember to keep your voice up?
Okay.
And to speak slowly.
All right.
And the reason for that is that the transcriber that you can see over there needs to be able to record your answers clearly and accurately.
Okay.
And if at any time you'd like a break, please let me know.
I will do.
Now, you've given two witness statements to the inquiry. They're going to appear on the screen in front of you as we go through your evidence today. But could we just put up your first inquiry statement, which is IWS 50768. Now, that's what we call your Phase 1 witness statement. It's already been put into the inquiry record and it's been published on our website. The second statement, which you've made for the purposes of Phase 2, is at IWS 401775. Now, can we deal with some formalities in relation to that second statement? Could we go to page 9, please? Can you confirm that that's your signature there, Ms. Kasote?
That is, yes.
Have you had a chance to read that statement recently?
I have done so.
And can you confirm that its contents are true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Now, everyone here will have had a chance to read your two statements. And what I'd like to do today is to ask you some additional questions about your experiences of living in Grenfell Tower. Could we start with some background? Is it right that you moved into the tower in 1996?
That is right.
And you had a tenancy. Was that with RBKC?
It was.
Now, in your Phase 2 statement, you also refer to the TMO. Before the events of the 14th of June 2017, what did you understand to be the respective roles of RBKC and the TMO in relation to the tower?
I understood they were the landlords.
Which one of them was the landlords?
RBKC.
And what did you think the job of the TMO was?
It was like a management board. That's what I thought.
You mentioned the phrase management board. Did you know that as a tenant, you could become a member of the TMO?
I wasn't aware.
Were you aware that the management board included tenants and leaseholders amongst its membership?
I wasn't aware.
Now, we'll be looking at your Phase 2 statement in more detail as we go on. But what you do in that statement is set out a number of concerns that you had over various issues, such as repairs and the refurbishment. When you raised your concerns, were you doing them by yourself?
Yes, I was.
So would it be right to say that you didn't go through any residents' association or group?
Initially, no.
Well, did there come a time when you did use a residents' group or association?
I did go and ask for advice at the end, yes.
And when you say the end, when was that?
It was after the boilers had been fitted.
So was that during the course of the refurbishment?
Yes, it was.
And which resident group did you approach?
It was the group that was dealing with the tenants. I can't remember what it was called, but it was dealing with tenants' complaints. It was formed by a group of tenants living in Grenfell Tower.
So is the name Grenfell Compact familiar to you?
It was in Grenfell Compact.
What about the Grenfell Action Group?
It could have been the Grenfell Action Group.
Thank you. Were you aware or ever aware of the Lancaster West Residents Association?
No, I don't remember that one.
Could I move on now just to ask you some questions about the ways that we used to give residents like yourself information about fire safety? And we can start by looking at your first Phase 1 statement, which is IWS 50768, and page 5 of that, please. Could we expand paragraph 21? If I read out paragraph 21 to you, Ms. Kasote, you say there, I do remember that the fire policy was to stay put unless you see a fire or had been told to leave by a firefighter. I remember seeing a notice pinned up on a notice board by the lifts which said this. Do you remember when you first saw that notice by the lifts?
It had been pinned on the notice board for a while, I think. I can't exactly remember when I saw it.
If you take the time of the fire as a mark, which was June 2017, was it years before that or months before that?
It was years before that.
So closer to that time, to the time of the fire, did you ever see a notice, not pinned to a notice board, but fixed by the lifts?
There was a notice fixed by the lifts closer to the fire, yes.
Thank you. Now, the time when you saw this notice pinned up on a notice board, was that the first time that you became aware that the policy in the event of a fire was to stay put?
Yes, it was.
And I appreciate time can be difficult, but
Yeah.
so just so that we can give it some context, you were aware of the stay put policy some years before the fire happened. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, it is.
Now, I appreciate that you moved into your home in Grenfell Tower in 1996. Can you remember whether, when you moved into the flat, you were given any fire safety advice?
No.
I wanted to show you a document. If we could have, please, TMO 20870665. If I explain to you, Ms. Kasote, what this is, it's the draft of a letter from the TMO to residents living in its properties. And as we can see at the top, it refers to fire safety. I don't need to go through the detail of it, but do you ever remember receiving a letter from the TMO about fire safety?
I don't remember.
Did you ever visit the TMO's website?
I don't think I did.
Did you know that they had a website?
I knew they had a website, but I knew the website for complaints.
Did anyone ever tell you that you could find advice about fire safety on the TMO's website?
No.
I'd like to show you now another document, please. It's IWS 401762. And if we could go to the second page of that document. Hopefully the fact that it's upside down isn't going to be too much trouble, Ms. Kasote, but can I just explain what it is? It's, now that we can see it, as you can see, it's a headed tenancy handbook, and you can see that it's from the TMO. We can see Tenant Management Association there. This document has been provided to the inquiry by another Grenfell Tower resident, Mohammed Rasool. He lived with his family in flat 25 on the 5th floor, and he moved into flat 25 in 1994. Mr. Rasool's recollection and his evidence is that he was provided with this handbook in or around 2004. Now, you obviously have been living in Grenfell Tower since 1996. Did you at any time while living in the tower receive a handbook similar to this or like this?
I think I did.
Can you remember when you first saw a tenancy handbook?
At the time I moved in Grenfell Tower, they did give me a handbook.
And did they ever provide you with an updated version of the handbook?
I don't remember.
If we just go to page 28 in this document, please. Ms. Kasote, can you see there's a heading, preventing fires, which begins, if you have a smoke detector in your home, you're responsible for testing it regularly to see that it works. If it's battery operated, you must replace the battery if it starts beeping irregularly. And then it refers to putting out cigarettes, not drying clothes over heaters, don't leave the kitchen when using chip pans. So that in this document that Mr. Rasool has provided, there is some fire safety advice. Thinking on it now, was that the sort of advice that you were given in your handbook?
I do remember the advice on smoke detectors, and I think this is right.
Can you remember sort of going back to when you were given the handbook, whether the handbook that you were given, whether that had any advice about whether you should stay put or whether you should leave the building in the event of a fire?
I remember the stay put policy on the notice board and by the lifts. I could have seen it in the handbook, but I don't remember, because when I read the handbook, it probably, after reading it, I put it aside and just, the reminder was the one on the lift and on the notice board.
Can I try another document and show you a different document and ask you a question about it? It's CST 406750. Again, if I explain, you can see the LFB logo at the bottom right-hand corner of that document. and it's a leaflet that's titled Home Fire Safety Guide for Purpose-Built Flats and Maisonettes. What I'd like to ask you, please, Ms. Kasote, is do you ever remember receiving a leaflet like this through your door?
No, I don't remember this one.
Do you ever remember seeing leaflets like this in the communal areas of Grenfell Tower?
No, I don't remember.
Could we now have, please, TMO 00873-549? Thank you. This is the front page of Link magazine, and it's from autumn-winter 2015, described as a bumper issue. Mm-hmm. It's the magazine that the TMO would issue to residents. Do you remember receiving copies of Link magazine through your door?
There were some linked magazines that came through my door, yes.
And what did you do with them?
I could have read some articles in them because it covered quite a broad number of articles. It covered, if it's the magazine I'm thinking about, it covered training as well, functions that were going on around in the estate.
Let's go to page 25 in this document. Now, you can see that there's an image there of a smoke alarm and heading, what to do if a fire breaks out. And then there's subheadings of in your home and then in your block, but inside your flat. Thinking back on it now, were you aware that advice about fire safety was being given through Link magazine?
It wasn't always given.
But do you remember ever reading a copy of the magazine and seeing fire safety advice in it?
No, I don't.
Putting the magazine aside, were you ever made aware that there might be information about fire safety in Link magazine?
Sorry, can you?
Did anybody ever tell you you ought to read Link magazine because it might have some advice about fire safety in it?
No.
If that had been said to you, would you have taken more notice of the magazine?
I probably would have, yes.
So we're showing you quite a number of documents, but the next one I'd like to show you is ART 402606. And just to explain what this document is, it's the first page of a July 2014 edition of the Grenfell Tower Regeneration newsletter. And can you see, Ms. Kasote, that it's got the TMO's logo on it and Ryden's logo? Do you see that?
I do.
Now, these were distributed during the course of the refurbishment. Do you remember receiving newsletters like this?
I don't remember this one.
But leaving aside this one, in general, do you remember getting copies of the Grenfell Tower Regeneration newsletter?
I don't remember.
Thank you. If I could just bring it together a little bit, please, Ms. Kasote, would it be fair to say that your understanding of what to do if there was a fire was to stay put?
Yes.
And was that your understanding if there was a fire during the course of the refurbishment?
Yes. You were only allowed to leave the building if you saw the fire. That's what the advice was on the notice board. Stay put unless you see the fire. You see a fire or something like that.
And aside from the notice you saw pinned to the board, did your information about what to do if there was a fire in the building come from any other source?
I could have discussed it with my neighbors.
Do you remember actually having conversations with your neighbours about fire safety?
I did, yes, because I think once when we had a fire, I could have spoken about this stay put policy that I wasn't very comfortable with. I don't remember exactly when, but I did speak about it.
Are you able just to sort of help us with when that fire was?
Must have been the early fires that happened in the shoot area.
Can you fix it to a year at all, or a range of years?
God, yes, it was way before. It was before the refurbishment, I should say. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, before we move on, and just a couple of questions about fire safety when the refurbishment was ongoing. During that period, were you ever provided with any updates about work to fire safety features in the building, such as the smoke ventilation system?
No, I don't remember that.
Do you remember ever being told that a fire safety feature was not working?
No, I don't remember that.
Do you ever remember being notified about whether any work would affect your access or egress from the central staircase?
No.
Can we go back? I want to take you back to your Phase 2 statement. Could we look, please, at IWS 401775, page 7 of the document? If I draw your attention, please, Ms. Kasote, just to paragraph 23. Do you have that?
I do.
Thank you. What you say there is, my front door was replaced around 2017. I'm sorry, I'll start that again. My front door was replaced around 2013. I remember that not long after it was installed, a few weeks I think, the door got jammed and would not shut. I called the TMO to report that my door was broken. It took around an hour for someone to arrive to fix it. The person that came adjusted the mechanism on the back of the door, which had previously made it close automatically, so that it no longer worked and my door remained open, not closing automatically. I remember asking whether this was a problem. The person that did the work told me it was not an issue and that it was causing complications. I did not really think about the significance of this at the time, and I accepted what he said. I was more concerned at the time that my door could close so I could be safe in my flat. Now, you also said something about this in your first statement, and just so that we can have the full context, let's take a look at that. IWS 50768, page 5, please. Let's look at paragraph 19. What you say there, Ms. Kasote, is before the electrics were changed, some years ago, our front doors were replaced. We were told that our doors were being replaced with fire doors. The new doors closed automatically. A few months after my door was replaced, it got stuck and would not shut. It was around 6 p.m. in the evening. The TMO sent someone over to fix it. The person who came to fix it removed a piece of metal from the middle of the door so that it was not stuck anymore. But ever since then, it did not shut automatically. Hopefully, I want to show you one last document before I ask you some questions, and hopefully we'll be able to bring it up. It might be a bit tricky. Could we have, please, RBK 3053297? We need to scroll down, please, to row 1307. Thank you. Ms. Kasote, if I could just explain to you that this is a spreadsheet that's maintained by the TMO. It shows repairs undertaken to flats. And we see in that row a reference to your flat, flat 41. And the date is the 21st of February 2014. And if we look along that row, do you see a box which is recorded as special instructions? What it says in that box is locks and fittings, locks broken or not working, front door lock broken, resident unable to close door. Now, we looked just a moment ago at your statement where you set out your recollection of the problems with your door. Obviously, you didn't have this spreadsheet when you made those statements, but looking at this, do you think that what's written in that spreadsheet must refer to the issue that you reported in relation to your front door?
It must, but it wasn't the lock. It was the door was stuck. It wouldn't close.
And it must have been in 2014 because that's the date that is written there. You would accept that, wouldn't you?
It could be this one, yes.
Now, you've pointed out that it wasn't the lock. Can you tell us a bit more about the problem with the door?
I got home one day and opened the door. Normally it shut automatically, but on that day the door just got stuck and it didn't move. I tried to push it. I couldn't push it closed. So it remained open. I phoned the TMO, and they sent somebody to come and fix the door. What he did when he arrived is he said it was the mechanism that was closing the door automatically that had jammed. And the mechanism was in the middle of the door, not at the top like the normal doors we know. So he pulled out a metal rod from inside the door and just gave it to me to keep aside. I asked if it was going to be a problem. He actually said it's causing more problems than it should, and left it there.
And was that the way your front door remained?
It remained like that. Nobody ever came to fix it again.
Did anyone from the TMO ever make you aware at any point during your tenancy of the importance of these mechanisms on your front door?
Nobody made me aware, but I presumed as long as I kept it shut, it would be okay.
Were you aware of any other neighbours experiencing problems with their front doors getting stuck and not closing automatically?
I wasn't aware. I was only aware because the man who came to fix the door mentioned that it had caused problems in other flats.
In other flats?
Yes.
Thank you. Did anyone acting on behalf of the TMO ever ask you for access to your flat so that they could inspect the front door?
Nobody did.
Did anyone ever knock on your door and introduce themselves as a fire risk assessor working for the TMO?
I don't remember anyone.
And so it's a position that after 2014, your front door wasn't closing automatically, and that never changed. Is that right?
It didn't change.
Ms. Kasote, I just want to move on to another topic now. And what I want to do is to ask you some questions about how you, as a resident, were kept informed of the refurbishment process in Grenfell Tower. Can we go to your first statement again? It's IWS 50768. If we look at page 4, please. Need to look at, sorry, could we go to the preceding page? I want paragraph 7, sorry. Right, if you could expand paragraph 7, please. What you say there, Ms. Kasote, is, and it's under the heading refurbishment. I remember getting a letter some months before the refurbishment from the TMO. I cannot remember exactly what it said, but it just gave vague details about what work was going to be done and the details of the company that was carrying out the work. And you then name the company, and you go on to say that that there was another letter telling us that there was to be a different company to carry out the works called Ryden. Now, is it right that we should understand that paragraph to mean that these were letters that you received before the refurbishment actually started?
Yes, it is.
Other than those 2 letters, did you receive any other letters about the refurbishment?
There could have been some more letters, but I don't remember exactly. This one I remembered clearly because it mentioned costs and that they were changing the first company to another company due to costs. So I remember this one clearly.
Well, let's keep with this statement, please, and go now to paragraph 15, which I hope is on page 4. What you say there, Ms. Kasote, is I remember being told by the TMO at a meeting for residents that they were going to bring the building into the 21st century and modernise. I cannot remember when this meeting was, as I went to several. They told us that the change from one contractor to another was because it was cheaper to go with Ryden. Do you think that this meeting was one that was, because it refers to going with Ryden because it's cheaper, was that one that happened quite early on?
It did happen quite early on.
But you went to several other meetings, is that right?
I did, yes.
How did you learn about these meetings?
There were leaflets that were dropped. I think there were leaflets dropped through the door.
At any of the meetings that you attended, do you remember being asked to complete a questionnaire about the refurbishment?
No, I don't.
And can you remember whether you were shown anything at the meetings?
There was a flat that was made into a demo flat, and we were shown how it was to do with boilers. I remember being shown that, yes. Going to one of those.
What about something like window designs?
Yes, I remember being shown window designs as well.
Did you see any samples of cladding, for example?
No, I didn't.
Aside from these meetings, did you attend any TMO roadshows about the refurbishment?
No, I didn't.
Is it right that the job that you do involves shift work, Ms. Kasote?
Yes, it is.
And you've said that you were able to go to several meetings, but stepping back from it all, did you feel that you had an opportunity to contribute to the building proposals for Grenfell Tower before the refurbishment began?
No, I didn't feel like that.
And why didn't you feel like that?
Because some residents had given their opinions and it wasn't taken on.
How did you come to know that
Because
opinions of some residents were not being taken on?
I had discussions with some of the residents on the floor.
Could you elaborate a little further about how those discussions arose?
They arose because people were concerned about some of the refurbishments that were going to take place. So there were discussions on us residents not avoiding to let the people doing the works to come into our flats until they were clear about what they were going to be doing. Because some of the refurbishments were not made very clear, like the boilers. They only had boilers for the bigger flats. They did not arrange for boilers for the smaller flats. So it was things like that that made residents a bit hesitant, and that's why we started talking about it.
And did you learn about the concerns of other residents through going to meetings of those residents, or was it just through conversations with neighbours?
It was conversations as well.
And did you actually attend some meetings that were residents alone?
With residents, I attended few, yes.
Can you remember who organised those meetings?
I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but there was somebody who organised the meetings.
Well, don't worry about that. I'm going to ask you a question a little later on that may bring us back to that point. Mm-hmm. But just one further point about the meetings of residents. How many meetings do you remember going to yourself?
Maybe just 2.
And tell me if you can't help with this, but how many at those meetings, how well attended were the meetings?
They were not very well attended. I think it's because of the times that the meetings were taking place. Some people were at work.
When you say not very well attended, can you give us? Do you remember how many people were in the room when residents were meeting to discuss their concerns together?
The 2 that I went to, it could have been maybe 10 people.
Could I have, please, another document on the screen, which is TMO 008400364, page 30. If we could expand paragraph 170, please. Ms. Kasote, I want to take you back to your evidence about attending several TMO meetings. And presumably when you went to those meetings, were other residents present at those meetings as well?
Sorry, can you just say that again?
Yeah, I'll go through this paragraph in a moment with you, but a short while ago I was taking you through your own evidence that you attended several meetings organised by the TMO. And I just wanted to be clear that when you attended those meetings, there were other residents present.
Sorry, did we say TMO or the residents organised by
The
us?
TMO. Do you want me to show you your statement again, just so that we're clear?
Okay.
Would that help?
Yes, it will.
Right. Let's go back to IWS 50768, please, and page 4. It's paragraph 15 that we looked at a few moments ago. And what you said there, you talked about attending a meeting the TMO had for residents.
Mm-hmm.
And your second sentence was, I cannot remember when this meeting was, as I went to several.
Mm-hmm.
So I think your evidence so far is that you went to meetings that the TMO organised for residents, and you also went to other meetings which were just residents alone. So what I want to ask you about is the TMO meetings. And I just wanted to be clear with you that all the meetings that you attended that were organised by the TMO, there were other residents there. Is that right?
There were other residents there, yes.
Thank you. If we go back to the document we just had on the screen again, please. If I explain, Ms. Kasote, what I'm showing you, it's a paragraph from the statement of Claire Williams, who was a project manager for the Grenfell Tower refurbishment. And what she says there was, whenever there were any public meetings involving Grenfell Tower, the meetings could become difficult with disruptive conduct from a small number of residents who took over and dominated the meeting with their comments to the exclusion of other residents who complained to me about this. As a result of the drop-in session on 12th of December 2013, we undertook a survey on how people wanted to be consulted, which showed the majority of people did not want formal meetings. This was published to residents in the January 2014 newsletter, and she gives a reference there. This meant that subsequent consultation was largely by drop-in sessions, newsletters, and on a one-to-one basis whenever or wherever or whenever that could be achieved. Now, we looked at your own evidence where you said you'd attended several meetings. At the meetings that you attended, did you see any residents behaving disruptively?
There were a few residents that wanted to give their opinion and what they thought about the refurbishment.
How did they give their opinion?
It wasn't as disruptive as described here. I don't remember something disruptive, unless there were others that ended up like that. But the ones I attended didn't end up disruptive.
At the meetings that you did attend, did any residents dominate those meetings to the exclusion of other residents?
I don't remember that.
Now, the passage I read out to you refers to a survey on how people wanted to be consulted. Were you asked, do you remember being asked to complete a survey?
No, I don't.
What Ms. Williams also says is that subsequent consultation from 2014 was by way of drop-in sessions, newsletters, and a one-to-one basis. Do you recall being told that there were drop-in sessions?
I was told about the drop-in sessions, yes.
Did you attend any of them?
I don't remember attending those.
Would there have been any reason why it would have been difficult for you to attend drop-in sessions?
It was the times they were arranged. I was probably working and wouldn't be able to attend.
Okay. I'm sorry to jump around between documents, but I want to take you back to your first statement again, please. IWS 50768, and again we're at page 4. If we could look at paragraph 17. You said there, Ms. Kasote, I remember that there was a resident who started a blog saying that the place was a death trap, and some people brought this up during some of the meetings, but I cannot remember exactly what everyone said. When you refer there to a blog, is that the blog that was run by the Grenfell Action Group?
Yes, it could be the same one.
And was it the resident who set up the blog? Was that also the resident who organised the meetings of residents? Do you remember you said you couldn't remember his name? But was it the same person?
I think he was the same person who organised the meetings, yes.
Did you ever read the blog yourself?
No, I didn't.
You say there that, the suggestion that the tower was a death trap was being brought up during meetings. At the meetings, what was the TMO's response to that?
The meetings where we discussed where the discussion about the place being a death trap wasn't organised by the TMO, as far as I remember. It was organised by the residents, so the TMO was not there.
I see. Thank you very much for clearing that up. But let's put the question a different way then. When you heard that, what did you think about that allegation?
I was worried, obviously.
Did you take any steps in relation to your concerns?
I don't think I personally took any steps, but I was just following what other residents were saying and putting across to everyone else.
Okay. I want to now go back to your phase 2 statement.
Sorry, can you just perhaps help us with this? Did you have reason to think that what people were saying was true?
I did have reason to think, that what people were saying was true, yes.
And can you tell us what they were?
It was the escape route. There was only one escape route.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just also worried about the stay put policy. That was my main concerns. Those were my main concerns, the stay put policy and the escape route.
Good. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we go now, please, Ms. Kasote, back to your phase 2 statement, and it's IWS 4011775. We need to go to page 5 and paragraph 15, please. If I just read a portion of that paragraph out, you say there, Ms. Kasote, generally, if I made a complaint to the TMO, sometimes I did not even hear back. Often I had to follow up a complaint I had made by email. I definitely noticed when I first moved in, the TMO would respond much quicker and were generally nicer and more responsive. As time went on, I felt that interactions with the TMO, not just for complaints, became much worse. Now, just again, if you could help us just with the timeline for this. You say as time went on, but was there a sort of a year or a period or an event after which things did become worse in terms of how the TMO responded to you?
It was when they moved the complaints office from Grenfell Tower. When I moved into Grenfell Tower, we used to complain directly to Grenfell in the complaints office at the bottom of at the basement. On the ground floor. There was an office where we went for any complaints, any repairs. But when they moved the office from there, we had to make phone calls to a central place. And at this time, it used to take longer to respond to repairs or any complaints.
Now, taking that change, the move of the complaints office as our starting point, you've said that you would have to make a phone call, and to a central office. And you also, when I asked you earlier about the website, you said that you were aware of the website in relation to complaints. So after the move and the office had been moved to the ground floor, how did you usually make a complaint to the TMO?
After the move, it was by phone call, initial. For repairs, it was by phone call, and if any repairs or works were not completed or done, then I would make complaints on the website.
And when you're referring to a complaint, is that what you mean? That your definition of a complaint is when a repair hasn't been done?
Yeah, there were delays in repairs sometimes.
And you say in this paragraph that you had to follow up by email. When you did that make a difference to the response you received?
Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't.
Were you aware of the TMO's complaints policy?
All I was aware was if I had a complaint, I should put it in writing on their website.
I want to just go to paragraph 18 of this statement. So it's again on page 5, please. If we just take a quick look at paragraph 17, you're speaking there, Ms. Kasote, about the boiler that was going to be installed in your flat, which you describe as huge and looking as far too big to fit into the hallway. But you go on in paragraph 18 to say that you were upset about the issue of the boiler, and after it was installed, it did take up a lot of room, and you hated the way it looked. And you continued, I complained to the TMO and to Ryden. We don't need to go into the detail about the placement of the boiler, but what you say in this paragraph was that you asked your local councillor, Judith Blakeman, for help. Why did you go to Councillor Blakeman?
Because I wasn't getting the response I was expecting from TMO and Ryden.
And what was the response that you were actually expecting?
I was hoping they would be able to fit a smaller boiler or move the position of the boiler into the place where the old boiler was.
Was there a difference in the response from the TMO once Councillor Blakeman became involved?
At the time, I wasn't given all the feedback, but Councillor Blakeman did follow it up quite extensively.
And if I put it a different way, earlier we looked at a part of your statement where you said that as time went on, interactions with the TMO became much worse. In this situation, you've got the position where you have approached the TMO yourself and Ryden, and then you've involved your local councillor. Did that improve? Did the involvement of Councillor Blakeman improve the way the TMO responded to you?
They did not respond.
Mr. Chairman, I've concluded all my questions for Ms. Kasote.
Oh, right, yes.
And what I'd like, I think, if we could have the usual short break, just to see if there are any other questions that I may be asked to put to.
Yes. Well, Ms. Kasote, we normally have a break when counsel get to the end of what he thinks is the end of his question. We have a break to give him a chance to just check that there's nothing he's overlooked, and also to give other people who are not physically present in the room the chance to suggest that there may be other points that we'd like your help on. So we'll have a short break now. I think we'll say until 11:05, although I make it clear that if anyone thinks more time's required, you can let us know. But we'll, as I say, we'll come back at 11:05, and at that point we'll see if there are any more questions we'd like your help on. All right? And I say this to you because I've said it to everybody else who's come to give evidence. Please don't talk about your evidence to anyone while you're out of the room.
Okay.
All right? Thank you very much. Would you like to go with the usher, please? Right, well, I say 11:05. If more time is required, you can let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Would you ask Mr. Kasote to come back in, please? Thank you. All right, Mr. Kasote. Well, we'll see if there are any more questions for you. Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Ramat.
There are very few questions
Right.
for Ms. Kasote. Ms. Kasote, can I take you back to your first statement, which is IWS 50768. If you go to page 5 and paragraph 21. This was the paragraph that we looked at about the notice pinned up a notice board by the lifts about the stay put policy. Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Can you just help us with this? Where was that notice board?
The notice board was to your right at the lifts,
And on which floor?
the ground floor.
Did you see a notice at all on your floor?
There was no notice board on the floor, so there was no notice.
I just want to ask if you can help with what the notice looked like, and I want to show you an image. It's INQ 6093. I think 50, sorry. 6093. INQ 6093. Was this anything like the notice that you saw on that notice board?
It looks familiar.
Do you think it's likely the notice you remember seeing is likely to have looked like that one?
It is, yes, it does look like that one.
Moving on to the next topic. Do you remember that I asked you some questions about Link magazine?
Yes, you did.
And I think your evidence was that it was something that you did receive and you would look at when you did get it.
Yes, sometimes I did look at it, yes.
Do you remember seeing in Link magazine information inviting residents to become members of the TMO?
No, I don't.
The last matter I want to cover with you, please, Ms. Kasote, is if I were to ask you what a fire control switch is that something you'd be able to answer?
No, I wouldn't.
There was a switch on the wall at the top of the lift doors on the ground floor. Do you ever remember seeing a switch there?
No.
Mr. Chairman, those are all the questions that I need to put to Ms. Kasote. So all that remains for me to do is to thank her once again for coming to give evidence today.
Good. Well, Ms. Kasote, on behalf of the panel and myself, I'd like to thank you very much indeed for coming to give your evidence.
Thank you.
I hope it hasn't disrupted your arrangements too much, but it's been very helpful to hear from you and good to see you. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And now you're free to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Ramat, I know we've got another witness coming this morning, but I don't think he's here just yet. Is that right?
We're due to start him in a little while. That's Mr. Khalloud. Ms. Sivakumaran will be asking questions of him. But I wondered, Mr. Chairman, if I could use the time that we have just to begin the reading in of some of the Phase 2 statements from BSRs.
Yes, well, by all means. Can I just raise one question? We are going to have a short break for sanitising the witness box. So I can take it now and then go straight into the witness when you've done the reading, or we can have a break after you've done the reading before we take the witness. I don't know what you'd find better.
If I could just perhaps read for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll
Yes.
take the break.
That's perfectly right, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the panel, as I indicated just a moment ago, what we're going to do now is to begin reading from Phase 2 statements provided by bereaved survivors and residents. The inquiry has received 225 Phase 2 statements from the BSR community. While we will not be reading from every statement, what the inquiry would like to do right now is to record our thanks to all of those who have provided their statements. And the inquiry team has reviewed every statement. It's informed our work on Module 3 and continues to do so. What we are going to do is to read extracts from some statements, and those extracts go to the following Module 3 issues. A, whether residents with particular vulnerabilities that affected their ability to evacuate were advised they could request a personal emergency evacuation plan, or about evacuation planning generally. B, what fire safety advice residents received from the TMO. And C, how residents' complaints and repair requests were raised with the TMO. On this point, we will also refer to evidence about repair requests for self-closing devices on the front doors. While we are reading only relevant extracts and only from a selection of statements, it is important to say from the outset that all the statements that we will be putting into evidence, which will be either by way of reading them in or by list, will all be published on the inquiry's website and will form part of the inquiry record in their entirety. What I will do, Mr. Chairman, is just begin by reading from statements of those residents who speak about having vulnerabilities that affected their ability to evacuate in an emergency. I want to start firstly with evidence from those who lived in the new flats. As the panel will be aware, 9 new flats were built in Grenfell Tower as part of the refurbishment. And as you heard in Module 1, some of these flats were expressly adapted for disabled residents. All of the residents placed in those flats moved into the tower in 2016, and at least one resident in each of these flats had some degree of mobility impairment. One of the residents was Mariko Toyoshima Lewis, and you'll remember, Mr. Chairman, that Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis gave evidence, oral evidence, during the course of the Phase 1 hearings. For the benefit of Mrs. Stefano and Mr. Akbar, Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis told you that she lived in flat 9 on the 3rd floor of Grenfell Tower with her 3 children and had lived there since July 2016. She is a wheelchair user, but her evidence was that the flat was not suitable for her needs because she couldn't get her electric scooter into the flat and she encountered difficulties when navigating through it. If I could please have on the screen IWS 401725. This is the Phase 2 statement of Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis. If we go, please, to page 76, we see there that it's dated the 28th of February 2020 and signed with a statement of truth. And so I ask at this stage that it be admitted into the record. If I can start in terms of my reading at page 16 and paragraph 40. Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis in this paragraph describes experiencing problems in respect of the lifts on numerous occasions. She was unable to leave the building if the lifts were not working. And as recorded in paragraph 42 on the next page, she says there that she reported her problems to the Latimer office every time the lift was not working. If we go through, please, to page 20 and paragraph 59, here Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis says, and I quote, that she did have concerns about what would happen in the event of a fire in terms of me being able to escape and the additional problems due to my disability, end quote. If we could go to the next page, please. And paragraph 63. What Ms. Toyoshima Lewis says at Roman numeral 2 is one of the issues I did raise was regarding what would happen in terms of me escaping if there was a fire. I asked Rob and the neighbourhood officer what would happen if there was a fire in relation to me escaping. I also asked the people working in the Latimer Road office what would happen if there was a fire, as I'm in a wheelchair. If we move forward in the statement to paragraph 67, again at Roman numeral 2, what Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis explains there, and I quote, "The responses I received in relation to what would happen if there was a fire and I am in a wheelchair was from Rob, and the neighbourhood office was verbal, where I was told that I'm on the list for disabled people in the tower." It's useful, Mr. Chairman, just at this point, just to go forward into the statement to page 29, please, and paragraph 78. What Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis says there is, quote, "I asked the estate inspector of the tower about how I would escape in the event of a fire. I cannot remember his name. He came and talked to me for 3 hours, explaining about how the building was built and designed to contain a fire. He told me that there were very thick concrete, 80 centimetre, around the flat, ensuring that the flat was completely safe in the event of a fire. He told me that because of this protection, I did not have to leave the flat in the event of a fire, as it was safe to remain in the flat if the fire had not started in my flat." Just taking the panel back to paragraph 76, please. I think that's on page 24. Reading the first part of this paragraph, it begins, "I was limited in terms of fire exits because I'm in a wheelchair, so cannot run down the fire exit. The only way I felt I could get downstairs and escape if I was on my own was to go down on my bottom. Even on the night of the fire, with the firefighters in attendance, there clearly was no plan or specific route for a disabled person such as me. The best way to explain the escape route is to describe the events of the night of the fire and how I escaped the fire." And Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis goes on there to refer to her Phase 1 statement, but I'll stop reading there. But you will recall, Mr. Chairman, that on the night of the fire, firefighters did indeed carry Mrs. Toyoshima Lewis out of the tower. Final point to make in relation to her evidence is that her former husband, David Lewis, has also provided a Phase 2 statement. We don't need to bring it up, but for the record, its reference is IWS 401629, and I ask at this stage that it be admitted to the record. I'd like now to turn, please, to the Phase 2 statement of Mrs. Mabube Jamal Vatan. That's at IWS 401724. The statement consists of 8 pages, and if we go to page 8, we can see that it's there signed, dated the 24th of February 2020, and there's a statement of truth. I ask that it be admitted into the record. Mr. Chairman, members of the panel, Mrs. Jamal Vatan lived in flat 10 on the 3rd floor of Grenfell Tower with her 2 adult children, Sahar and Sajjad. They'd moved there in August 2016. Mrs. Jamal Vatan is disabled, and her daughter, Sahar, was her carer. If I take you, please, to page 2 and paragraph 5. What Mrs. Jamal Vatan says at that paragraph is, "I reported the problems about the lift to the TMO 2 or 3 times. There was a problem with the lift every month. One or other of them would always break down. It was a big problem for me due to my disability, which causes me mobility problems. It would take me ages waiting for the lift and getting down. I have a problem with my knees and my shoulder, and I walk with a stick. I'm not able to use the stairs, but rely on the lift. I note that my complaints about the lifts breaking down were not recorded in the copy of the RBKC TMO housing file, which was obtained by my legal representatives, despite multiple requests for the relevant information. If we could move forward in the statement, please, to paragraph 12, which is on page 3. And this is in relation to fire safety information. And Mrs. Jamal Vatan says, I refer to paragraphs 10 and 11 of my May 2018 statement. That's her phase 1 statement, which states that I was never given any instruction or advice about fire safety in the building, in person or in writing, and I did not see anything, either in the communal areas or inside my flat, regarding what residents should do in the event of a fire. If we could go to the next page, please, in paragraph 15. What Mrs. Jamal Vatan says at that paragraph is, I had never been made aware of any fire safety policy or of the stay put policy. Finally, if we go, please, to paragraph 18, which is on the same page, and this is under the heading Fire Safety Complaints. Mrs. Jamal Vatan says, as far as I was aware, there were no special provisions that we I think it must be a typo, but we were made aware of relating to people with special needs, including mobility issues or language issues. I escaped down the stairs on the 14th of June by sitting on my bottom and going down the stairs that way, as I was not able to walk all the way down the stairs. I just had to bump my way down. If I could conclude Mrs. Jamal Vatan's evidence by explaining that her daughter Saha has also provided a phase 2 statement to the inquiry, which speaks to the same issues. The reference for that, again, we do not need to bring it up, is IWS 401704, and I ask at this stage that Saha Jamal Vatan's statement be admitted into the record. Mr. Chairman, I've note the time. I think that's probably a good point to stop.
Yes.
So we can then obviously get the witness seat ready for the next witness.
Yes, well, it shouldn't take too long to do that, I hope. And then the next witness, who I think is
Youssef Khalloud.
Mr. Khalloud, yes. Well, if he's here and ready to give his evidence, we'll get him in as soon as we can, shall we?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Well, we'll rise just for a moment while the witness box is cleaned for the next witness. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Sivakumaran. Now we've got another witness.
Yes, if we can call Mr. Youssef Khalloud.
Good, please. Yes. Is Mr. Khalloud there, please? Good morning, Mr. Khalloud. I understand you're going to take the oath. Have you got a copy of the book there?
Yeah.
Quran?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you repeat the words after the usher then, please?
Sure, no problem, sir.
I swear by Allah
I swear by Allah
that the evidence I shall give
that evidence shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth. But the truth.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, would you like to sit down and make yourself comfortable?
Thank you.
We ought to be able to provide you with some water.
Yeah, I'm fasting. Thank you.
Of course you are, yes. Well, forgive me for...
No problem, sir.
All right. Well, off we go then, Mr. Sivakumaran.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Khalloud, can I begin by thank you for coming to give your evidence today
Thank you.
and also for assisting the inquiry with our investigations. It is really very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Now, if you have any difficulty understanding a question or you want me to repeat any questions or rephrase it, please do ask.
I will.
I'll also ask you, I think you're very softly spoken,
Yeah.
but if you can keep your voice up and speak slowly for the transcriber because they're going to be recording what you say, and if you can keep your answers clear.
Sure.
Now, I just want to start with some preliminary matters. You've provided 2 witness statements to the inquiry. I want to take you to those. They're going to appear on the screen that's before you.
Yeah.
Turning to the first statement, and that's reference IWS 50473. This is a statement that you provided to the inquiry in Phase 1 and has already been put into the inquiry record and published on our website. You can see that before you?
To be honest, I need my glasses. I left them in my car, but that's fine. I can.
Well, no, we might ask you to look at some documents. So would you like us to get your glasses or would you like to
That's
get them
fine.
yourself?
That's fine. It's-
Well, I think... Laura... Yes. Right. I think it would be better if you did get your glasses.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
Thank
We'll sit here and wait for you, but there's
Sorry.
no great urgency. Go on. The usher will come with you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now you can probably read the document. I have
Yeah.
the other problem. I have to take mine off to read the documents. But,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, so you can see your Phase 1 witness statement before you at the moment. Is
Sure.
that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd now like to take you to your Phase 2 statement, and this is reference IWS 401754. Can you see that before you?
Yeah.
And then if we go to the last page, page 12, it appears to be signed. Is that your signature?
Yes, I am.
And it's dated the 25th of February 2020.
Yeah.
Have you read both statements recently?
I think I read one. It's not both.
Okay, which statement have you read
The
recently?
first one.
The first one?
Yeah.
Okay, and from your recollection of the first and the second one, can you confirm if their contents are true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Now, everyone here has had a chance to read your statements, and we've considered them carefully. I will be asking you some additional questions that arise from them.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
Firstly, you moved into Grenfell Tower in June 2006, is that correct?
Yes.
And you lived in flat 85 on floor 11.
Yes.
And you lived there with your wife and children, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you're a tenant of RBKC.
Yes.
Now, I want to now ask you about the relationship between RBKC and TMO, at least your understanding of it.
My relationship was, to be honest, it was fine. I never have any arguments with them, and I never have any problem with them. Well, the connection is going to be between me and them. the payment, I never been behind for the payment. And for repair, most of the job I used to do it by myself. I never called, and I didn't call them very often, just if some big issue, like door broken or something. Just one time, with my experience, I have a sink blocked. That is one of the time. It was an argument, but just was misunderstood. I called them for one of the sinks, and he was blocked, and he tried. It's like.
Now, Mr. Khalloud, I'm just going to pause you there. We will take you through some aspects of your statement.
Sure.
But in respect, you've been referring to the different organisations. Now, to break them down, there's the TMO and RBKC. Starting firstly with the TMO, were you aware that the TMO is a separate organisation from RBKC?
Yeah.
Okay, and what was your understanding of the responsibilities of the TMO?
The TMO responsibility is the repair of any repair on the flat.
Now, you mentioned that you reported several repairs. Does that mean you'd report them first to the TMO?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you understand were the responsibilities of RBKC in respect of Grenfell Tower?
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay. Well, to go back to the TMO, you understand that they were managing the repairs. Did you know that TMO is managed by a board?
No.
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 Okay. And did you know that you could be a member of the TMO?
No.
So you weren't aware that there was an annual general meeting for the TMO?
No.
No. Okay. Were you aware of any residents' associations for Grenfell Tower?
No.
No. So the name Grenfell Compact, does that mean anything to you?
Of course, Greenfield, I used to live in that town.
Mm-hmm. So you are aware of Grenfell Compact?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about Grenfell Action Group?
I know this is too many. What do you call it? I'm not sure about it, to be honest, but I know there is after the fire is too many groups is coming up with is supporting us, helping us, and.
Okay. So the name Grenfell Action Group. Do you know that name?
Yeah.
Yes. And were you aware of it after the fire or before the fire?
No, after the fire.
After the fire, only. Okay. And the final group that I want to ask you about is Lancaster West Residents Association. Were you aware of this Residents Association?
No, to be honest.
No. Okay. Now I'm going to come back to ask you more about the Residents Associations in Grenfell Tower, but I just now want to take you to what you've said about fire safety advice and ask you a few further questions about that.
Sure.
Okay, so now if we look at your first statement, which is IWS 50473, and if we go to page 2 of that statement, starting at paragraph 5,
Yeah.
you've said, we were never given any advice on what to do in the case of a fire when we signed our tenancy agreement and moved into Grenfell Tower. We were not given a pack of papers or any leaflets on this subject. We were also given no verbal advice on what to do in the event of a fire. I did not witness any fire alarm tests or fire evacuation drills from the TMO, the council or the fire brigade while I lived in Grenfell Tower. I then want to move forward to page 3 and pick up your statement again at paragraph 10. You return to the subject of fire safety advice, and at paragraph 10 you've explained, no one has ever explained to me what to do if there is a fire. We were never given any advice on what to do in the case of a fire when we signed our tenancy agreement and moved into Grenfell Tower. We were not given a pack of papers or any leaflets on this subject. We were also given no verbal advice on this. I had never seen any notices in the hallway as to what to do in the case of a fire. I had never seen any such signs in any floors. And then you continue at paragraph 11. Before 14 June 2017, my belief was that I would have to go out of the building for fire safety of me and my family in the event of a fire. Even if someone had told me to stay in put, I would leave. Now, I just want to take you through what you've said there, because you made it very clear that when you first moved in, you weren't given any documents with fire safety advice.
Yeah. Yes.
The inquiry's been provided with some documents that I would like to show you, and I just would like to ask if you have seen those before.
Sure.
The first one I'm going to take you to is a copy of the Tenancy Handbook. This references IWS 401762, page 2. And if this can be turned around, we can see that's a handbook called the Tenancy Handbook in blue. It's been provided to the inquiry by another resident of Grenfell Tower, Mr. Mohammed Rasool, and he's explained in his statement that he was provided this handbook in and around 2004. So my first question is, have you seen a copy of this handbook before? Do you recognise it? No. So you've never received a copy even after moving into Grenfell Tower? No. I'd like to then take you to another document. This is CST 406750. Now, this is a leaflet titled Home Fire Safety Guide for the purposes for purpose-built flats and maisonettes. And we can see at the bottom that it's produced by the LFB. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a flyer like this before?
No.
No. And so you wouldn't have seen this flyer around Grenfell Tower?
No, I can't
And it's not been
remember.
posted in your flat?
No, I can't remember I see something like that before.
Okay, thank you. I'd now like to take you to another document, take you through quite a few of the different documents now.
Sure, no problem.
This is TM0 00873 Now, this is a copy of the Link magazine. Can I first ask, did you receive copies of Link magazines?
Not really, to be honest. No.
No. Were you aware that they existed?
Yes.
How were you aware that they existed, the Link magazines?
What? It's not much, to be honest. But this, I never receive anything like that, any magazines of at home or something.
Okay, so you never
Yeah.
got them posted to your
No,
address?
no, to my address.
Okay, but you knew that the TMO produced a magazine called Link?
Sometime when I go to the office, he's in TMO office downstairs to complain, to report any repair or something. I can see something on the board. You've got board in the office. I can see some. The time when I'm waiting to see someone, that's the time I can see some leaflet on the wall. But I never receive anything on my flat.
Okay, and was that a magazine posted to the board or a leaflet?
Just leaflet. It's not magazine.
A
Just
leaflet?
Yeah.
And can you describe what that leaflet said?
Just some like pictures, like that picture you show me now. To be honest.
So pictures like this that would say Link?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is in.
And did you see any copies of the magazines in the TMO offices?
I can't remember. No.
Okay. So is it fair to say that you never read the Link magazines? No. Now, the TMO also had a website. Did you know that the TMO had a website?
No.
So can we take it then that nobody ever told you to visit the TMO website?
No.
And you weren't aware that there was fire safety advice on the website?
No.
Now, there's one last type of newsletter that I'd like to show you. This
Sure.
is the Grenfell Tower Regeneration newsletters. And if we can pull up ART 402606. We can see at the top it says Kensington and Chelsea TMO and Ryden. Can you
Yeah.
see that?
Yeah.
And then the title of the newsletter is Grenfell Tower Regeneration Newsletter. And this particular copy is dated July 2014.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen this type of newsletter before?
No.
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 And you never received copies of these newsletters?
No. To be honest.
Were you aware that the TMO and Ryden were distributing newsletters like this to residents?
Should, but I didn't receive anything, to be honest, like that before.
Okay. But so you don't know if your neighbours were receiving them?
No.
Now, returning to your statement, we'd seen at IWS 50473 so we'd already read from paragraph 10 and 11, and you'd said that you'd never seen any notices in the hallway and you hadn't seen any signs in the, on the floors. I'd just like to show you an image now. This is INQ 6093. This is a fire action notice that was posted next to the lifts in Grenfell Tower. Did you never notice this this image?
No.
No. So to confirm, before June 2017, you were not aware of the stay put policy?
No, to be honest.
Now, you've also explained in your statement that even if you were aware of it, you still would have left the building.
Yes.
Why would you not follow the stay put policy?
Which policy?
Sorry?
Which policy I have to follow up?
So returning, if I can show you your statement again, it's
Yeah.
IWS 50473.
Yeah.
And at paragraph 11, you said, before June 2017, my belief was that I would have to go out of the building for safety of me and my family in the event of a fire. Even if someone had told me to stay in put, I would leave. So when you say this, are you aware that there is a stay put policy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're saying that before June 2017, you weren't aware of that stay put policy?
Yes.
Yes. And what I understand from your statement is you said even if you were aware of the stay put policy before June 2017, you still would not have stayed in your flat, you would have left your flat in emergency. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And my question is, why would you have still left your flat
Why I still left my flat?
and not followed the stay put advice?
Because I can stay in the fire. If something emergency, I have to go out, I have to go out. I cannot stay.
Can I just see if you can help with this? If you discovered in some way that there was a fire in a flat on a different floor from yours, would you think it necessary to leave, or would you stay in your own flat?
Yeah, I have to leave.
And I think what you're being asked is, why would you leave in those circumstances?
What to leave? Why? Sorry, can you repeat the question,
Yes.
please?
Why would you think it necessary to leave if there was a fire in a flat on a different floor?
This is for my safety. And that's what I've been learning. That's what I've been... as in my statement is where I said, I'm working in the hotel, we're doing tests. Fire every 6 months. That's what we're learning. If any fire, you see fire or you heard the alarm, drilling alarm, constantly, he didn't stop, you should leave. Doesn't matter if you see the fire or you didn't see the fire. Just you need to leave if the alarm come off for a long time. If the test is going to be stopped, if not, if it's constantly for less than more than a minute or two, automatically you have to leave. You don't need to ask questions. You don't need to take anything with you.
And that was something you'd learned at work?
Yeah, that's why I did at work.
Yeah. Well, thank you, I understand.
I'm now going to turn to a new subject, and that's about your door. Now, returning to your first statement, if we move down to page 4, at paragraph 16, you've explained about your front door. You said, our front door has been there since 2014. The TMO had replaced everyone's doors in 2014, except if they were private owners. I think it was a wooden door
Yeah.
before, and they replaced it with a new wooden door. The old door was painted green and the new door was painted black. The door only has one lock. It does not lock automatically if you shut it behind you. On our front door, there was nothing in the frame inside the door to pressure it to close if you left the door open. There used to be a door closer on the frame inside the old door, but it had been broken for a long time. It was making noise when you used the door. When they came to put in new doors during the renovation of the building, we just told the builders to take off the closer. They did not replace it. Now, firstly, I'm just going to take you to another document. This is MAS 703. Now, this is a spreadsheet that the inquiry has been provided, showing all the doors that were replaced, the tenants' doors in Grenfell Tower. And if we look at row 46, it's not very easy to read, but what it does say is that your door for your flat was replaced in 20th of May 2011. Now, in your statement, you've said that your door was replaced in 2014. Is it possible that your door was replaced in 2011 and not 2014?
All the building doors is been changed in one time, to be honest. The dates, I can't remember, to be honest, but if he's been saying 2011, could be, but I'm not sure. But like I said, all building door has been changed in one time. It was like a project for them to be changed, all the building doors, and he starts floor by floor, door by door, whatever is available, and he's doing. But the dates, maybe I said for 2014, but if he's been done in 2011,
Okay.
this is got the record, but
Okay, so we can confirm it wasn't changed again after 2011?
no, it's only one time change.
Okay. And how long after the door was installed did that self-closing device break?
Maybe year, maybe 6 months. I'm not sure about the exact dates, but
So it was quite soon after the door was installed?
yes,
And did you report that the self-closing device was broken to the TMO?
yes.
How did you report it?
We called them.
Called
We
them.
just have the number. We called them.
And what did they do in response?
Well, he took a bit of time to come to see it, and he can. And I told him he bring another part, but it doesn't work as well. I just told him just take it off. It's not gonna work, and he took it off. At least we can be easy to close the door and open it and close it, because he was making some noise and it's difficult to close it as well.
Okay. So did they try to replace the self-closing device?
Yes,
They did try.
yeah, he did, but he didn't.
How
replace
many times did they come to repair your door?
it. Once.
Once. Just returning to your statement, if we can look again at IWS. It is. You've said on the last line, we just told the builders to take off the closer. They did not replace it. When you say you told the builders to take off the closer, is that your reference to TMO repairman?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that time, I believe he wasn't riding in the building. It was only TMO. He's been dealing with the doors. I believe he was different company. He wasn't installed the doors. It's not TMO. But after, when the company is finished, it's the TMO take it over. That's how it is. Because I remember the day when the engineer coming to fix the door. It's not from TMO. It was just one person. He come in, take the door off, frame off, replace everything, and go. But the time he was the door closer is not working. He's not the same person, but he's with the TMO badge and TMO logo as well.
Okay, so you knew he was working for the TMO?
Yeah, because you've got uniforms.
Was he someone you recognised from the TMO?
Not really, to be honest. It's too many of them. Every time someone come in.
So it wasn't a handyman or a state services assistant?
Not sure.
Now, did the TMO make you aware at any point during your tenancy at Grenfell Tower about the importance of self-closing devices for your flat front door?
No.
And did anyone ever ask you for access to check your flat front door?
No.
And no one inspected the self-closing device afterwards?
No.
Okay, I now want to move on to another topic, and that's in respect of the refurbishment process. Now, if we can look at your Phase 2 statement, it's IWS 1754. And if we go to page 3, Now, paragraph 12, you've said, I stated at paragraph 24 of my phase 1 statement that there was a refurbishment of the tower in 2015. I do not recall there being a consultation with residents about the refurbishment. I think we just received letters from the TMO informing us it was going to happen.
Yeah.
How many letters did you receive from the TMO?
It could be one. I'm not sure, but usually sometime when you've got some work or some project, he sends some letters, especially if it's going to be some lift broken or something is inside. He inform you with the timing. Because he's going to come to your house, he inform you with the timing and date.
So you said it could be one or it could be some. Does that mean that it was more than one letter?
Yeah, different time, different. Yeah, if you've got more work he's going to do, every time he send you something. Especially something is in your house, in your flat.
Okay. Did any of the letters invite a response from you?
No.
And I want to show you a document which is a TMO summary of their consultations. It's SEA 406003. And if we can go to page 14. Now, this is a consultation summary. You might not have seen this before, but in this table, in the second column, the first column has the dates, and the second column shows the types of consultation that the TMO said that they used. It continues on to the next page, but what we can see on this page is it says that there were road shows in 2012, estate meetings, evening consultation meetings, newsletters. These are the consultations that took place in 2012. And if we go on to the next page, we can see again that they're referring in July to evening consultation meetings and daytime drop-in sessions and newsletters. Mm-hmm. And those were held in July and August. Now, were you aware that there were road shows ongoing in 2012 about the refurbishment?
No.
Were you aware that there were estate meetings?
No, to be honest.
And evening consultation meetings?
No.
So can I take it that you were not asked to complete a questionnaire about what you would like to happen in the refurbishment?
Sorry, say again?
I'll put that a different way. Were you asked to complete any questionnaires about the refurbishment?
From them?
From the TMO. Did the TMO send you a questionnaire?
No.
No. And before the work in the refurbishment began, did you feel that you had any opportunities to contribute to the building proposals?
No.
Now, I just want to show you another document. This is an email, and the reference is TMO 00846-124. Now, this is an email addressed to Mr. Collins and Mr. Defan. It's not one that you're copied into, so you might not have seen it before. But Mr. Collins and Mr. Defan had asked for a meeting with the residents, and Claire Williams had responded, and she set out communication channels or consultation that the TMO had carried out with residents in 2013 and 2014. So this is the period after the document that I've just shown you.
Okay, this is before the meeting, before the refurbishment.
This is during the refurbishment it starts. So it's 2013 into 2014, and the email itself is sent in April 2015.
No, sorry, never see that email.
Yes, of course. Yeah. No, I understand you haven't seen the email. I want to ask you about the content of the email.
No, I don't think so. It happened.
Okay. What I understand that you haven't seen the email. What I want to ask you about is some of the types of consultation that Claire Williams said that she put, that were arranged for residents.
To be honest, during the refurbishment, we've been asking TMO to come to our meeting. We create a residence meeting sometime, and never come to sit down with us. Never. We ask them during the refurbishment to discuss with us at least what's going to be inside our flat, what he's going to do, but never come until when contacts the councillor And that's the time he forced them to come to sit down with us in the meeting. That's the time I saw TMO call us to sit down to have a meeting to discuss what he's going to do inside our flat. But whatever is doing outdoor, we never talk to us at all. But inside our door, that's the time we told them to come, but never come to sit down with us, to be honest.
Okay. I'm going to ask you about those residents' meetings that you had. Before we come to them, were you aware that there were any drop-in sessions for residents with the TMO?
No, to be honest. Never come TMO to us, to talk to us.
Okay, and did you know that there was a respite flat that you could visit?
Yes.
Yes. And
Yes.
did you ever visit that flat?
Yes, a couple of times.
Okay. And did you have a chance to talk to the TMO on those visits?
Yes, we talked to them, but yeah, we talked to them. They show us the flat how it's going to be, but we told them about our concern was about the boiler. That's the main things we've been talking about it, but never come to us to sit down to change the location of the boiler. That's most of the residents. That's the issue was talking about it.
Okay. Well, if I can take you then to your statement where you've spoken about the residents' meetings.
Yeah.
It's IWS 401754, page 3. And then at paragraph 17, you've spoken about these regular meetings that you've just mentioned.
Yeah.
And you've said that we would meet once or twice a month. When did you start attending the residents' meetings?
During the refurbishment.
Do you remember roughly what year it was? Or?
Not really, but during the refurbishment, it was in 2014. That's the time we started doing the meeting. That's the reason why we're doing that meeting, just because the refurbishment, we wasn't happy about was the TMO or Ryden is doing. What Ryden just he's doing what he's been told to do, to be honest. But the TMO, what he's been doing to our flat, we wasn't happy. All the residents, or most of us, we wasn't happy. That's why we start sit down, doing a meeting, and to talk to them, to try to change something.
Okay. And were those discussions only about the heating interface unit or the boiler?
Well, that's the big subject, to be honest. Plus the pipe, gas pipe, plus the, whatever is inside our flat.
Okay, so can you just summarise for us what your concerns were about the work that the TMO was doing? What were your main concerns about the refurbishment?
Windows, but the windows was not a problem, but the big problem was the boiler. He was in the corridor, and we wasn't happy about it. For the safety, for the location of it, it wasn't that good, to be honest. That's why we wasn't happy to put it in there, in the corridor.
And you've also mentioned the gas pipes as well.
Yeah, the gas pipe was offside the doors as well and coming in. It's quite a bit of risk for it to be offside, stuck that.
Did you have any other fire safety concerns during the refurbishment?
No.
No, in your statement, I believe if we turn over to page 4, paragraph 19, it says there, we were calling on the TMO to come and sit down with us at our meetings and discuss our concerns, but no one attended for months. It was only when we called our local MP to attend one of the meetings that the TMO started to respond to our concerns. And this is, as you said, they only met with you after the TMO met, after your MP met with you.
Yeah.
And did you feel that the TMO responded to any of the concerns that you raised in those meetings?
Yes.
You do feel that they responded to them?
He's been forced them to do it, to be honest.
Why did you feel that they were forced?
Well, because he don't want to listen to us before. If he's not been forced, he should listen to us when we told them the boiler shouldn't be in the corridor, should be in the kitchen, whereas the previous place, whereas the other one. but he don't want to listen, and he done it for like a 70% of the flat of the building, until like the 25 or 30% left. We told them we're not going to let anyone to come to our place, our flat, to do it, and that's the time we force them as well. Because when we don't let the resident to come to do the work, that means it's going to be some delay of the project, and that's the time is where we call the MP to come to sit down with us and to talk to us, and you can talk to them. And the MP, that's why I told them. To be honest, I was in the meeting, and it was like 2 questions or 3 questions for them. He told them, that guys, he called us to come to sit down to talk to us about the boiler. Can you change it from that place to that place? He said, he said, yes, he can be. He said, just do it. That's it. He said, we're going to be a bit more time. The job is going to take more than 2 days. It's going to take like 5 days. And she turned to us, ask us, and you happy guys to be work done more than 2 days, 5 days? We said, yes, fine. Just we need to be safe. That's it. And the job done. And the next day, change it. Start putting them in the same place we want it.
Okay. And did that mean that all your concerns were addressed after they moved the boiler?
Yeah.
Okay, and you didn't have any further fire safety concerns after this?
Well, at least we moved the boiler from there just for our safety and the kids' safety, but the rest we cannot control it. For our house, we try to make everything safe for ourselves, but offside we cannot talk to them, to be honest. We cannot change anything.
When you say off-site, what area you describe?
I mean, we're talking on the lift area, stairs, and...
Did you have any concerns about the safety of those communal areas, the lift areas and the stairs?
No, to be honest.
No?
No.
Okay. Mr. Khalloud, thank you very much for your time. Those are my questions. At this point, I will need to just check if there are any other questions from any of the other co-participants.
All right, thank you.
No
well,
problem.
Mr. Khalloud, you may know this already, but when council gets to the end of what she thinks are questions, we have a little break to ensure that nothing's been omitted.
Sure.
And also to give other people a chance to suggest further questions. So I'm going to ask, we'll break now until 12:30, and at 12:30 you come back and we'll see if there are any more questions we want to ask you. Is that all right?
No problem.
And
Yeah.
so you go with the usher and we'll see you a bit later on.
Thank you.
I don't think you'll have a chance to talk to anyone about your evidence, but if the chance does come, please don't take it.
No.
All right?
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you very much.
Thanks.
Right, well, I'll say 12:30. If it turns out that more time is required, will you just let us know? Thank you. Yes, would you ask Mr. Khalloud to come back in, please? All right, Mr. Khalloud, we'll see if there are more questions for you.
No problem, sir.
Yes, Ms. Sivakumaran.
I have two further questions.
Right.
Firstly, if I can take you back to your statement again, Mr. Khalloud, at IWS 401754. This is page 3. And at paragraph 17, and if we go over to the next page, actually, where we want to look at the top of the page. Yeah. You've spoken about the meetings that you had with residents, and you've explained that you attended some of them. In the last line, you say the most active resident in this group was Ed Defan. He was the point of contact between the group and the TMO. My question was he representative of the group? Was he a representative of the group?
The Ed, he's the one he was organized most of the meetings, and he talked to the residents what time, he called us sometime, and he was between us and the TMO, or, yeah, he's the one who was the representative.
And was he representing your concerns?
Yes.
Okay. And then my final question is, during the sign-up with the TMOs, this is when you first moved in to Grenfell Tower, do you recall receiving any documents informing you that you could become a member of the TMO?
No.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Khalloud.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Khalloud, thank you very much indeed for coming to give us your evidence. It's
No
been very good to hear from you.
Thank you, sir.
And I think that's all we have for you, so
Thank you very
you're
much,
now
sir.
free to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Well, we've got a little more time left this morning, so we're going to read some more statements into the record. But before we do that, we'll have a short interlude while we change over counsel so that Mr. Rawat can take over on the reading. The panel will not retire. We'll just wait until that's been done. If anyone else here does not wish to stay for the reading of 4 statements, you're free to go. But of course, you're very welcome to stay. Mr. Rawat, well, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the panel. I want to now continue reading from statements of residents who had particular vulnerabilities. We're moving on now to evidence from witnesses who lived in the higher flats in Grenfell Tower. Some of those residents reported their mobility concerns to the TMO. None say that they were advised about the possibility of having prepared a personal emergency evacuation plan. The first statement that we will go to is that of Alison Moses, and if we could have, please, on the screen, IWS 401281. Miss Moses lived alone in flat 11 on the 4th floor of Grenfell Tower, and this is the first page of her phase 2 statement, which consists of 13 pages. Could we go to page 13, please? Again, Mr. Chairman, we see that there is a statement of truth. The statement is signed and dated 14th of February 2020, and I ask that it now be formally admitted into the record. In terms of reading, I would like to take the panel back to page 3 and paragraph 13. Ms. Moses says there, I had informed RBKC stroke TMO of my health conditions because they impacted my housing needs. Mobility difficulties meant I would need a property that was step 3 and I had a wet room. My tenancy agreement for flat 11 of Grenfell Tower notes that I have additional needs, and she then gives the reference for that document. If we move through the statement, please, to paragraph 42. Thank you. Under the heading Fire Safety Advice, Ms Moses says as follows: I do not remember being provided with any fire safety advice after moving into the property. Although I was not provided with fire safety advice, I knew what I would do in the event of a fire. I knew I would get out. This was not based on anything I had been told to do, but my own response to something like that. I suffer from health problems which affect my mobility. This means I cannot use stairs and I cannot easily step in and out of the bath. RBKC and the TMO were aware of these needs. My needs were also recognised by Adult Social Care, which is part of RBKC, as they installed a wet room in my flat. I finished reading from Miss Moses' statement at that point. If I could take the panel, please, to the statement of Mariam Youssef Adam. That is at IWS 401296. This Phase 2 statement consists of 7 pages, and if we go again to the last page in the statement, we see again that there is a statement of truth. The statement is signed, dated 14th of February 2020, and again, Mr Chairman, I ask that it be put into the record at this point. For background, Miss Adam lived in flat 14 on the 4th floor of Grenfell Tower with her husband, Abdul Wahab Abdul Hamid, her brother Yassin Youssef Adam, and there was also a friend, Amna Youssef Muhammad, who stayed with the family on occasion. If we go, please, to page 3 in the statement, and if we look at paragraph 11, this is where, in the statement, Miss Adams begins to discuss vulnerabilities as well as her language needs. She says at paragraph 11, I do not remember seeing a fire safety sign on my floor or on other floors. When I first moved in, the housing officer told me where I should go in the event of a fire, which was down the stairs. This is contradictory to the state policy that I have now been made aware of. I remember there was a green/white sign on the wall on my floor that showed the escape routes. I do not remember seeing any emergency lighting on my floor or any smoke control or ventilation system. If we go on to paragraph 15 on the same page, Ms Adam continues at paragraph 15, I was not aware of the state policy before 14th June 2017. If the TMO did provide any information, I was not aware of this. Anything sent by the TMO was always in English, which was not my first language. I was not aware of any special provisions made for those with language or other special needs. I also have mobility issues which make it difficult for me to walk, and I don't remember RBKC or TMO providing any specific information about escape routes in an emergency for those with mobility issues. I was told by the TMO when I moved in that in the event of a fire, I would have to use the lifts. They advised me that if I could not use the lifts, then I would have to use the stairs. They made no efforts to resolve this issue for me, given that they knew about my mobility issues. That's where I will conclude reading from that statement, but I would add that Ms Adams' brother, Yassin Youssef Adam, has also provided a Phase 2 statement that is under the reference IWS 401301. Her husband, Abdul Wahab Abdul Hamid, provided a Phase 2 statement under reference IWS 401919. These statements go to similar issues, and I ask at this point that they be admitted into the record. The next statement, Mr Chairman, I'd like to turn to is that of Maher Kuder. And you'll remember, Mr Chairman, that Mr Kuder gave oral evidence to you during Phase 1 of the inquiry's hearings. If we could have, please, IWS 401616 on the screen. This is the first page of Mr Kuder's Phase 2 statement. It consists of 16 pages. And again, if we go to page 16, we see there it's a statement of truth which is signed and is dated the 24th of February 2020. Again, for the panel, by way of background, and you'll recall this was Mr. Kader's evidence in phase 1, Mr. Chairman, but he lived in flat 64 on the 9th floor of Grenfell Tower, and he was living there at the time of the fire with his wife and 3 daughters. Mr. Kader has polio, or had polio in both of his legs and this was since early childhood, and after an operation on his knees in 2009, he had to use crutches. In his phase 2 witness statement, he says that his mobility issues meant that it was impracticable for him to use the stairs. He was therefore heavily reliant on the lifts. And he also notes that there was no exit route with disabled access. If we go, please, to page 7. And pick it up at paragraph 47. What Mr. Kader says there was no fire exit route with disabled access at Grenfell Tower. The only route I could take was the only flight of stairs. I did not understand why there was no escape routes suitable for disabled people, as I could not run or walk through the stairs as easily as other people because of my mobility issues. If I move through the statement now to paragraphs 55, please. We'll look at 55 to 58. Under the heading Fire Safety Advice, Mr. Kader has said as follows. When I moved to Grenfell Tower, nobody gave me any fire safety advice or explained to me what to do in case of fire. The council or the TMO did not give me any fire safety information. They simply showed me the flat, showed me where the kitchen was, where the bedroom was. The council did not prepare any personal emergency evacuation plan for me as a disabled person on crutches to explain to me what I should do in case of emergency. In case of fire, I did not know what to do. We could move again forward now to page 8 and paragraph 61, please. Mr. Kader makes the point in this paragraph that the TMO and RBKC would have been aware of his disability, as he had gone to the town hall to make a complaint about access to the tower whilst the main entrance was closed. Mr. Kader says that he informed them that they had to open the main entrance because the bridge was too dangerous for him, given his disability. If we go on to the next page and paragraph 62, Mr. Kader continues, in approximately 2016, I complained about the bridge to Victoria Barwick, that should be Borwick, who was the MP for Kensington and Chelsea at the time. She came to meet me and other residents of Grenfell Tower and people working from the TMO. She told people working for the TMO to listen to me. A man working from the TMO asked me what I wanted, and I told him I could not use the bridge and the stairs at the end of the bridge because I'm on crutches and I have severe mobility issues. Someone from TMO even promised the MP that the main entrance would be open after 2 weeks, but it was reopened after 3 months only. The statement continues, I complained almost 20 times about the lifts not working, but nothing was done. I'm very disappointed at how I was treated. That's where I end reading from that statement, Mr. Chairman, but if I could go to move on to the evidence of Rosita Bonifacio, please. And that is at IWS 401887. Mr. Chairman, you will remember the phase 1 evidence relating to Mr. Elpidio Bonifacio, who was the last person to be rescued from Grenfell Tower on the 14th of June 2017. He and his wife Rosita had lived in flat 83 on the 11th floor of the tower for 36 years. They have 2 sons who were born and grew up in Grenfell Tower before moving out as adults. As we see here, Rosita Bonifacio had provided a phase 2 statement which consists of 11 pages. And if we go to page 11, please. Again, it has a statement of truth, it is signed, and it is dated 13th of March 2020. If I could ask that we move back to page 3, please. And please, if we could expand around paragraph 17. This is under the heading Fire Safety Signage and Information. Mrs. Bonifacio's statement continues, I do not recall being given any information about fire safety by the TMO, RBKC or London Fire Brigade. I do not recall seeing any fire safety signage in Grenfell Tower outlining what to do in the event of a fire. There was not a sign by or in the lift stating that the lift should not be used in the event of a fire. If we go on down to paragraph 25, please. And again, if we see the heading Special Needs or Vulnerabilities Relevant to Fire Safety, in this part of the statement, Mrs. Bonifacio is explaining why she thought that the TMO and RBKC were aware of her husband's disability. And the statement reads from paragraph 25, Shivanthi, my advisor at Kensington Citizens Advice Bureau, registered my husband's disability at the town hall. So RBKC and the TMO must have known about my husband's disabilities, namely, he is partially sighted and has mobility issues. In addition, as I outlined previously, when the TMO initially refused to carry out repairs in our flat, I told them that my husband was disabled and that we were both unable to carry out the repairs ourselves. In paragraph 26, the statement continues, the TMO never spoke to me about moving to a lower floor in the tower, despite the fact that my husband and I are both elderly. The TMO also did not offer to make adaptations to our flat to make it suitable for my husband and more accommodating for his disabilities. They never carried out any kind of assessment of our needs. It made me feel like they did not really care and that it was better not to go to them to complain about anything. And the next paragraph reads as follows. I did not contact the TMO about these issues or inform them that my husband required a special fire evacuation plan because of his disabilities, because I did not think, if we go over to the page, that they would care. It was always a struggle to get them to respond to my complaints, so I felt that there was no point going to them for help. Mr. Chairman, I now want to go to another statement, and that is the statement of Shakila Flora Neda. We could have on the screen, please, IWS 401272. Again, Mr. Chairman, you will remember Mrs. Neda. She gave evidence during phase 1 and on the same day as her son, Shekab Neda. Her phase 2 statement consists of 13 pages, and if we could go to that last page, please. We see the statement of truth. The statement is signed. It's dated the 2nd of March 2020. And again, I ask that it be admitted into the record. Again, for background, Mrs. Neda lived in flat 205 on the 23rd floor with her husband, Sabah, and her son. The family had moved into Grenfell Tower on the 17th of May, 1999. And again, as everyone will know, Mr. Neda died during the fire. In her phase 2 evidence, Mrs. Neda has described her reliance on the lifts in the tower, and she explains that when the lifts were out of service, she would go back into her flat and not go out for the day. Mrs. Neda, however, had no choice but to take the stairs on occasions when she had medical appointments. And if we go, please, to page 8 in the statement, and we look at paragraph 50. This is where Ms. Neda describes her medical conditions, and the paragraph reads, I suffer from myasthenia gravis. I was diagnosed with this in December 2008, which causes weakness in my muscles, and I am easily fatigued. My TMO housing officer, who I think was named Janice, was aware of this. She was a really good housing officer, and I openly spoke with her about my condition. During this time, I was using a walking stick, and she told me that she was sorry to hear about my diagnosis. The reception staff had also noticed that I had started to walk with a walking stick. Claire Williams was also aware of my medical condition. The RBKC was also aware, as my social worker made arrangements for a carer for me, and she came to my flat twice a week to help me with domestic chores. I'm going to stop reading there, but if I ask that we go over to the next page in paragraph 51, what Mrs. Neda says in that paragraph is neither RBKC nor the TMO never discussed fire safety with me. after they became aware of my disability. They also did not discuss an escape route in the event of a fire. Although my health had deteriorated, I never requested to be moved to a lower floor. I loved my flat and was very happy there, and I did not want to move. That's all I read from Mrs. Neda's statement, but I add now that her son, Shekab, has also provided a Phase 2 statement where he gives further information on the same issues as his mother. The reference for that is IWS 401302, and I ask that it be admitted into the record. Mr. Chairman, if I could now turn to Phase 2 statements that have been provided by bereaved witnesses who have given evidence in those statements about their loved ones who had vulnerabilities. And I would like to start with 2 statements from members of the Shukair family, Sausan and Hissam Shukair, who both speak about their mother, Mrs. Shura Shukair, who died in the fire. As you will recall from Phase 1, Mr. Chairman, Sausan Shukair lived in flat 191 on the 22nd floor with her mother, Syria. Ms. Chukair's sister Nadia lived on the same floor with her husband Bassam and their 3 children. The evidence was that they were a close-knit family who shared meals and valuable time with each other. We know from Sausan Chukair's evidence that her mother loved living with her children and grandchildren and the view over London from her flat. If we go, please, to IWS 401799. This is Sausan Chukair's Phase 2 statement consisting of 22 pages. Please go to page 22. Again, we see a statement of truth signed and dated 2nd of March 2020, and I ask that this statement be admitted into the record. Can we go back, please, to page 9? And start at paragraph 9, please. Here, Ms. Chukair speaks of her mother's mobility issues, and if I read from the middle section of the paragraph, it reads as follows. My mum, with whom I lived with, had difficulty walking due to her back. She could walk a bit, but could not stand for long periods. In order to keep her balance, she had to use a walking stick. Due to her having to use a walking stick, it would have taken her a long time to get down the stairs, and she would need help. This was a pre-existing condition before she moved in. If both of the lifts were not working, she would not be able to leave the flat, as it was a long way to walk down the stairs. I'm not aware if RBKC had her recorded as disabled. If we go now, please, to page 12. This is the continuation of paragraph 12 at the top of the page, but I just want to read that bit into the record. My mum suffered from a disability as set out above. I'm not sure if RBKC knew about this, but I know the benefits people did as she was assessed for fitness to work and was seen by a doctor. I'm not sure of the result of this or whether that information was passed to RBKC. Could we have, please, now on the screen, IWS 401851. This is the Phase 2 statement of Hisham Chukair, which consists of 31 pages. If we could go, please, to page 31. It is again accompanied by a statement of truth, signed and is dated the 26th of February 2020. So again, I ask that that be formally admitted into the record. Can we take it back, please, to page 2? Paragraph 8, Mr. Chukair begins to describe and discuss his mother's health conditions. But if we pick it up at paragraph 10, what he says there is that, in my view, in the context of her housing needs, she was also vulnerable by the fact that she could not read or write in English. And although she could understand and speak limited conversational English, she would find it difficult to understand any unusual or technical terms, words, or expressions. If we could move forward in the statement to page 8 and paragraph 42, there, Mr. Chaker states, at paragraph 42, the apparent failure to prepare a personal emergency evacuation plan or even properly record the above information about the personal risk to my mother in the event of a fire, or to communicate it to others, for example, the LFB, meant that there were no measures in place to support her in the event of any evacuation. Could I ask that we move 2 pages down to paragraph 56, please? And this is about the provision of fire safety information. At paragraph 56, Mr. Chaker records this. I think that my family were aware of the fire safety advice. I remember my mother saying that she had had someone from the TMO or RBKC visit her, and that they told her to stay put if there was a fire. I was not there at the time, so I do not know if they brought a translator with them. But even though she remembered the words stay put, my impression was that she did not understand what that meant. That is all I propose to read from Mr. Chaker's statement, but the final point to make is that Nabil Chaker, who is also a son of Sirah Chaker, has also made a Phase 2 statement. That is under the reference IWS 402365. And I ask at this point that that be admitted into the record. Mr. Chairman, I note the time, and I would propose that we stop at this point.
Is that a convenient point?
It is, thank you.
Right. Now, we've got another witness coming after the adjournment, is that right?
Yes, we have. At 2
And
o'clock.
as far as we know, she'll be ready to start at 2 o'clock.
I hope so.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you. We'll break now then and resume at 2 o'clock. Thank you very much.